Hey freaks, Kyle here. We have a big announcement to make. We now release next week's episode a whole week early, free, on our new Patreon page. This is perfect for all our die-hard freaks of the show who can't wait for our next spectacular. So come one, come all, and become a certified freak by joining us over on Patreon. Now, let's go on with today's show. When she gets there, Jana answers the door and Lorena is clearly in distress. She huddles into the corner of Jana's living room and starts screaming. Finally, she tells her what she thinks she has done, that she has cut off John's penis. She must have, because all she knows is that she woke up with it in her hand. She also knows that she threw it out of the window near a 7-Eleven in front of a patty cake daycare center in the early hours of a Wednesday morning.
That is a lot to unpack there. I'm sorry, I'm just like, one, should we have done like a public service announcement to all the men listening to go like, this is going to be maybe a hard lesson.
Welcome to the Compendium, an assembly of fascinating and intriguing things. We're a weekly variety podcast where each week I tell Adam Cox all about a topic I think you'll find both fascinating and intriguing. We dive into stories pulled from the darker corners of true crime, the annals of your old unread history books, and the who's who of extraordinary people. We give you just enough information to stand your ground at any social gathering. I'm of course your ringmaster this week, Kyle Reese.
And I'm your strongman this week, Adam Cox.
Aren't you the strong man every week?
But in this week in particular, really strong.
Actually, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Okay.
I changed your Instagram to Muscly Adam on the Linktree profile, and then I clicked through it, and you're taking your Instagram down.
I'm taking a leave of absence from Instagram.
That is unacceptable, because I've literally been dangling a carrot over our listeners' ears. I've been like, come look at Matt Adam's muscly arms. And then like, boom, 404 page.
Yeah, sorry. I'll probably be back. It's just, with Instagram, it just gets on your nerves sometimes.
Do you know what? I don't even think I look at that many naked people on Instagram, but that's all I see. Like the Instagram for the Compendium is just men with no clothes on. And I'm like, how did this happen?
I don't know. Well, you tell me. You're the one that looks after the
But the
Instagram.
thing is, though, every single account I've ever had always ends up like that. Maybe it's because I linger a little bit too long,
Well, that's the thing. It knows when you zoom in, Kyle. It knows when you zoom in.
Gotta check this bulge. Boop, 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 boop. So, Adam, in today's Compendium, we are diving into an assembly of the most shocking revenge story that's sliced through the media. On the 23rd of June, 1993, Lorena Bobbitt, after facing years of abuse and rape at the hands of her husband, John Wayne Bobbitt, shocked the world when she cut off her husband's dick with a butcher's knife while he slept, passed out drunk in his bed.
Oh, yes, this woman. But I remember the story of the husband's penis being cut off.
Yeah, how old were you when that happened? Do you roughly remember? I mean, when it's something as shocking as that, every man on this planet goes, I know exactly where I was.
I was eating a peanut butter sandwich.
And then the news came through on the airwaves.
Yeah, I can't remember. How old was it, like the noughties?
So this would have been 93, this happened.
Oh, so even longer than that. Yeah, I was at school, so probably wasn't on my radar.
Do you know what? I remember it really vividly. I especially remember my mum and her friends talking about it and how scandalous it was. But the thing is, though, once she cut off her husband's penis in a trance-like state, she got into a car with her husband's severed dick and drove away. And at some point, the realization of what she did set in, at which point she just threw her husband's penis out the window near a 7-Eleven, sparking a mad rush to try and find the penis so it could be surgically reattached back on to her husband's body. And while at the heart of the story is a really sad situation of prolonged domestic abuse, very quickly it became marred with ridicule and humor due to kind of the bizarre nature of the story. And very soon, the world forgot that this was a domestic abuse story that had culminated in this drastic, dare I say, climax, because the media only wanted to focus on the shocking details of this missing penis.
I guess we're going to get into it. Like, where is that penis now?
So today, I'm going to tell you about this bizarre story, and as we peel back the layers, I'll tell you how John gambled with his dick and ended up losing it. I'll tell you about the frantic search for the said Willie, the trials that followed, the media frenzy, and the long-term impact that this story had on both Lorena and John Wayne. This, Adam, is the story of Lorena Bobbitt and her husband's severed penis.
I don't know how I feel about the choice of words of peel back the layers when we're talking about a severed penis.
I think that was genius bit of writing from me.
I'm concerned.
But of course, before we dive into it, should we get on with all the latest things?
Let's do it.
Step right up and welcome to this week's All the Latest Things, where we unveil the fascinating, the extraordinary, and the downright loopy stories, strange facts, and intriguing tidbits from the past week. So Adam, it's your turn to go first this week, so what have you got for us?
Do you know what? This week, I'm going to have to pull my dog ate my homework kind of story. I haven't got anything for this week.
You're joking, you have
It's
nothing.
been busy. I was ill, then other things happened. I've had a lot on.
Adam, this is really disappointing. Well, fine, I guess it's just my all the latest news then. So I was on TikTok the other day and I found out about this guy called Mike Edgett. Now, you probably haven't heard of him, but Mike Edgett discovered something really incredible. He discovered something really odd about KFC and their Twitter account. And he noticed that they only follow a handful of people. Do you want to have a wild guess as to who you think KFC might be interested in following on Twitter?
Hang on, I think I know this.
Mm-hmm.
So how many did you say that they follow?
Well, I did say a handful because I don't want to give the clue away.
I think I know this. I think they follow around about 5 people, or roughly that. And isn't it all related to the seasoning of their ingredients or secret ingredients of their batter?
Well, what's the secret ingredients?
Salt.
They follow salt.
Yeah, isn't it like something, or is it like the Spice Girls or something like that?
They follow 7 random people called Herb,
Oh, this is it.
which
yeah.
in America they call them Herb,
Yeah.
and all 4 Spice Girls. So essentially 11 herbs and spices.
That's it. So I knew it had something to do with this.
How clever is that? So after Mike discovered this, he just tweeted it and just went absolutely viral. And KFC had been sitting there for ages, just waiting for anyone, to discover this or just to notice it. So when Mike finally discovered it, they sent him the most kitsch painting of him and Colonel Sanders walking through the forest. Colonel Sanders has given him a piggyback and they're eating a drumstick. And they got this painted for him. It's an actual painting.
That's a really nice gift, but where would you hang that?
Exactly. Well, apparently he hangs it in his living room, and he is so proud of it that every time he walks through the living room and sees it, he sheds a little tear of pride that he discovered it. But that's the painting.
That's hilarious. That is actually Colonel Sanders.
Isn't that the kitschest thing you've ever seen in your life?
And the guy's on getting a piggyback with a drumstick. That's
And in
it.
the background, there's all the fauna and the deers and stuff.
Yeah, it's this really beautiful landscape. It's almost like was it Snow White when she like goes out and all the birds are singing and everything like that?
Was he real? Was he a real person?
Did he not create KFC himself?
I just don't know if he was like just a mascot.
I don't know. I thought he was real.
I just figured he was mythical.
It feels like it should be like an Apple movie on this or something.
Oh, just like with a McDonald's kind of movie. Yeah, they should do that. I'd watch that. And so what they also did is they also sent him $55 KFC gift cards, which I guess, well, like 1 KFC a week, I guess, for a whole year. But that brings me to my next, all the latest things.
Okay.
Because a family bought $10,000 in gift cards for Disneyland only to realize that they were for Disney Plus.
No.
I know.
How many subscriptions do you need?
Why did no one say anything? How long would $10,000 get you off streaming? How many years?
It's got to be like, what is it? Disney worth 12 quid a month or something
I
like
think
that?
it's like $7.99, according to this article anyway.
Okay, fine. 100 years.
Yeah, exactly. 104 years worth of Disney Plus subscription. I doubt even Disney Plus will be even around in 104 years.
Probably not, but that's a real nice, I don't know, legacy to leave your children. You will have Disney Plus. until you're 50.
And you lord it over them as well. Oh, yeah. Do you know Kevin hasn't visited me in a while? I think I might have to rewrite my will.
Take out the Disney Plus.
I have to give that to Stephanie. Not Stephanie!
But the thing is that they'll probably put up their price increase. That probably will come down.
So the story goes that in 2020, they'd planned a trip to Disneyland, but of course, the pandemic happened, so they had to reschedule. And they rescheduled it for this year. So the whole family were going to go, 16 of them. So, of course, Paramount, they needed to save as much money as possible. So they decided that they would load up on gift vouchers, which they would then issue to everyone going in their group. And yeah, when they purchased them, they just didn't realize that it was Disney Plus vouchers.
And when did they find out? Was it when they actually got to Disneyland? They were like, I will exchange 10 of these for a pass for today.
I think it was before they left, actually.
Okay.
So they were trying to redeem some of the vouchers online for some of the amenities around Disneyland when they realized, oh, there's a bit of a problem. And then they called customer support. They found out that it was actually for Disney Plus vouchers. And luckily, they did get them transferred over into actual Disney World vouchers or Disneyland vouchers.
Yeah, I guess you spent with us £10,000 or dollars, whatever.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, there is a moment where you don't know if they're going to be able to transfer or willing to transfer them across. So can you imagine the panic that you must have gone through in that moment when you realised?
Yeah, otherwise they are giving them out as Christmas presents for the next 10 years.
So that's all my latest things for this week. Shall we get on with the show?
Let's do it.
So Adam, Lorena's story goes like this. On the 23rd of June 1993, Lorena's 26-year-old husband, John Wayne Bobbitt, comes home after a heavy night of drinking. When he arrives home drunk, she says that John violently rapes her. Afterwards, John just passes out on the bed. Lorena says that she then went downstairs to get a glass of water, and while she was in the kitchen, she sees an 8-inch butcher knife on the counter, and she just snaps. At this point, Lorena blacks out and she says she doesn't remember what happened next. But what we must ascertain is that, of course, she picks up the knife, she goes upstairs, she pulls down the bedsheet covering John, and she cuts off his dick. The next memory Lorena has is driving in her car, one hand on the steering wheel and another holding John's severed penis. Realizing that she was holding a bleeding dick, Lorena freaks out, immediately rolls down the window and throws the penis out onto a grass verge. She then speeds off to the nail salon where she worked as a manicurist, hoping that her boss Jana will still be there. When she arrives, the door is locked and she sees a bin outside the salon where she discards the knife that she used to cut off John's dick. She then gets back into the car and speeds off towards Jana's house. Now, Jana was not just her boss. They were extremely close, with Lorena looking up to her as a mother figure. When she gets there, Jana answers the door and Lorena is clearly in distress. She huddles into the corner of Jana's living room and starts screaming. Finally, she tells her what she thinks she has done, that she has cut off John's penis. She must have, because all she knows is that she woke up with it in her hand. She also knows that she threw it out of the window near a 7-Eleven in front of a patty cake daycare centre in the early hours of a Wednesday morning.
That is a lot to unpack there. I'm sorry, I'm just like, one, should we have done like a public service announcement to all the men listening to go like, there's going to be maybe a hard lesson.
There's a lot of men just kind of like cringing and like
clutching.
Why is that how you feel right
A little
now?
bit, yeah. Like I was kind of grimacing through that. Okay, so it sounds like that she has zoned out or gone in some sort of trance state, or I don't know, like sleepwalking almost.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's come round while she's holding almost like a sausage, like a hot dog in the car. She's holding that and thinking, oh, well, I can't remember getting a hot dog. Why is there like ketchup all over me? Looks to her left hand and then goes, oh, that's not a hot dog.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's a bleeding dick.
Lugs that out the window
Uh-huh.
and then just drives to work. So why did she get, because she was going to go to work anyway.
No, so this was in the middle of the night. I think she just knew that she just needed to go to someone that she could confide in, or kind of like to find comfort. Like Jana was the only person that she could think of to go to because they were so close.
Uh-huh. And so she discards the knife at work or just outside work and then finds Janet and then just breaks down and goes, I think I've just cut off my husband's penis.
But let's unpack the other thing now. the thing that you missed. Because all the reporting talks about how she discarded the penis outside a 7-Eleven. But actually, when I looked at this, it was closer to a patty cake daycare center, and this happened in the early hours of the morning, knowing that in just a few hours, some little kid is going to come along and go, "Mummy,
I found a worm."
I found a worm. My God, why is that not reported on more?
Did that actually happen? Was it kids that found?
No.
Oh,
God, thank
good.
God, no.
Yeah.
But can you imagine? That's the risk. But then if the media was so intense on diving into the weird details of the story, that would be one thing I would absolutely capitalize on. Like outside a daycare center here in Virginia, and we're on the ground, and Timmy, what did you find this morning? Do you know what I mean?
Looks like my dad. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Maybe they took some sympathy because, I don't know, maybe it sounds worse by leaving this outside of a daycare center. And they were like, let's just not even go down that road.
Sure.
No kids got
I guess
involved.
it's the 90s.
Yeah.
And actually, what's really interesting about the story is that because it was a story about a dick, in the 90s, it was just not a word that you could use on television or in the media. Same with vagina. Like, you just couldn't really use those words.
You could use penis though, right?
Not really. It was kind of like considered highbrow, but they had to really consider like changing the rules so they could report on it properly.
No way. Because I remember in Austin Powers, there's that scene whereby they don't refer to it, that rocket that's going into space, which is shaped like a, but they never say what it's shaped like. They go, Johnson.
They had to kind of discuss the rules essentially around what was allowed, what wasn't. And this case pretty much kind of spearheaded that forward.
Spearheaded penis news coverage.
Are we going to have a lot of penis innuendo throughout this?
I think so. This is serious, Kyle.
It is. We need to treat this as such. So Lorena is freaking out in Jana's living room, and Jana says, okay, we need to go to the police. We need to tell them what happened, but we also need to tell them that he raped you. So they go to the police station, and even though they lead with saying that John raped her, the police are not interested. All they seem to care about is that a dude turned up at the emergency room missing a penis, and now this random woman was in their station saying that she had took it. So the police are like, well, where's his penis if you stole it? And of course, she's not sure. She just remembers throwing it out the window near a 7-Eleven. So at 4:30 a.m., a bunch of police officers head to the location and they conduct a full-blown search. They look everywhere. And eventually, Adam, they find it just sitting there in the grass verge across from the 7-Eleven. And someone has the sense to know that they should probably put it on ice. So someone picks up the penis, they run over to the 7-Eleven, they grab a big bite hot dog box.
Oh, God.
They fill it with ice and they pop the penis into it. And from there, the police rush it to the hospital where John undergoes 9.5 hours of surgery to reattach it. And Adam, it's successful. They reattach his dick.
So how long was he missing that? Because it sounds like he woke up quite suddenly or not long after. And the fact that he didn't wake up whilst it was being cut off is one question.
Well, that's not what he says.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to hear his side of the story?
What did he say?
So let's see what John's version of the events are. So he says that he came home really late one night with his friend and they were indeed both very drunk. He says that when he got home, he and Lorena got into an argument that culminated in John Wayne asking Lorena for a divorce. From there, the argument erupted into a lot of screaming and a lot of shouting, where he says that Lorena became psychotic and jealous, saying that if she couldn't have him, then nobody else would. Eventually, their emotions died down. John Wayne started drifting off to sleep when he was then stirred by Lorena climbing onto him, trying to arouse him. Then he says all he remembers is a tug and a pull, and then she was gone. He then looked down and realized what had happened, and immediately he put pressure on it and then went downstairs to where his friend was sleeping to ask for help getting to the emergency room. But forensic experts who analysed the scene said it was very clear from the way that the blood had pooled on the bed and the imprint that the blood had left around his body that he didn't act with any urgency as per his statement.
Oh.
And that it was actually evident that he was so drunk that he likely didn't know what had happened and just went back to sleep for a considerable amount of time.
That is
shocking.
I can't. Yeah,
shocking.
I can't. So he's in a pool of blood when he wakes up. Then
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? At the moment, obviously, we don't know if he's guilty of doing what she says or whatever at this stage. So if we just treated it based on the fact that a man has woken up without a penis, can you imagine that?
I can't
turmoil?
imagine. I can't imagine it.
You must first wake up thinking that you perhaps wet the bed, right?
No, I don't know. Would you not be stinging?
Yeah, that's a good point. So he must eventually have been woken up by the pain.
He just denies that he did fall back to sleep. He's saying that he immediately acted, but he didn't.
Right. So, but yeah, forensics says otherwise. So it sounds like you're lying.
Absolutely. But anyway, let's go with his version of what happened, right? Just for a second, because he's saying that he then went downstairs immediately after she'd cut off his dick to where his mate is, who was also drunk and couldn't understand just how serious the situation was. So he insists that before they go to the hospital, that he brushes his teeth, which again, man, like this is your mate. Your mate just had his dick chopped off. You act fast. You are like, don't you worry, buddy. We're going to get that dick back on your body.
True.
But he was so drunk that he didn't understand what had happened. So he starts brushing his teeth, and John Bobbitt is just standing there in the living room, apparently applying pressure to his groin, probably wobbling from side to side, going, oh,
But his friend's like, I need to brush my teeth. Gum disease is a thing.
It's a big problem.
Yeah, I am not leaving the house without cleaning my teeth. I'm sorry.
There might be girls there.
But it sounds like they're obviously going to start to drive and probably be under the influence. So he's trying to disguise his breath if he does clean his teeth.
Oh, yeah, it could be a good point. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, swearing probably side to side on the road. That might be a bit of a giveaway. But no, just, brush your teeth. That's fine. No one can smell the booze.
Do you know what? Let's put it like this. If you are going to the hospital drunk because your buddy's just had his dick chopped off and you get stopped by the police, do you think that police officer is going to be like, get out of the car, you're getting arrested? He's going to be like, no, go, I'll escort you.
Yeah. Now, don't they make them get out the car and then they have to walk a straight line along the lines of the road? Whilst
Exactly.
he's clutching his...
But that's clearly not going to happen, is it? It's like, okay, there's clearly something wrong. I think other men will just have an instinct for what's happened, and they'll be like, don't worry, we're all going to band together. Let's get you to hospital.
Yeah, fair point.
However, they don't know that he's a rapist at this point. So they just think he's an unfortunate victim of having his dick lobbed off. I think if they knew he was a rapist, I think they would probably arrest him. You're going to just bleed out. Sorry.
No.
Oh, you're dying? Sorry.
Yeah.
Donut? So eventually they stumble into the hospital and they go up to the lady and they're like, my mate's dick's been chopped off. And she's like, what? Like, I guess it's not something that you're going to see every day, right? Hear every day.
She's probably going to roll her eyes. Oh, this again. Yeah, join the line. All these men holding their groin.
Oh, my God. So that was also around about the same time that Lorena was turning up at the police station with her friend to tell them that what she thinks that she has done to her husband. So the hospital actually end up contacting the police. The police are then coordinate a recovery of the severed penis. Meanwhile, across the police dispatch radio waves, the media actually catch wind of the story, because usually you have these hobbyists that are like listening to the radio broadcast between the police.
Yeah. You see that in TV shows, but I didn't know how true that actually...
Yeah, that's how the Charles story leaked as well, wasn't it? The Camilla tampon kind of debacle where they were having like a little romantic moment where they were talking about how he wanted to be her tampon so he could live inside a vagina.
He's our king.
He's our king.
I forgot about that.
I think the same kind of similar thing happened there. But basically, these hobbyists would listen in, but so would also TV and radio stations. They would also pretty much have access to these bandwidths. And the hope was that they would be able to land a big story by listening into these radio waves. And so this became a story almost immediately. And remember, the thing is, though, during the 1980s and the early 1990s, this is when kind of cable television was first taking off. And news was going through that transition of kind of adopting like a 24-hour-a-day format. And since the news, of course, can be pretty damn boring. You need as much news as possible, and also you need to learn how to start to sensationalize it.
Yeah, this sounds like just the right thing they needed.
Exactly. You needed it to be more entertaining. So prior to this, of course, as you know, the news was just typically limited to specific time slots like 10 p.m. or the 6 p.m. news, and then again in the morning, etc. So like when they moved obviously over to this 24-hour format, like they just needed more entertaining news. And this, as you said, was the story. So eventually the penis makes it back to the hospital in this big bite hot dog box, and John is prepped for surgery to get it reattached. Now, while all this is going on, Lorena is on the other side of the hospital getting a rape kit done because, of course, in her statements, she says that John had raped her. So the operation ends up taking 9.5 hours, and the surgical team consists of a urologist, Dr. James Sen, a plastic surgeon, Dr. David Berman, along with several other experts. Now, Dr. Berman, the plastic surgeon, was the leading expert in the country for microsurgery.
Microsurgery?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Is this micropenis surgery?
No, it's not for micropenis, but that's the first thing that I thought of. So it's basically surgeries that include maybe reattaching a finger, so more digits. But that's the last thing that John wants to kind of spout about. It's like, yeah, I had a microsurgeon reattach my penis. Just so you know, microsurgeon is for reattaching digits. I'm actually really well endowed. So.
They did think it was actually too big for him to look after.
Are you sure? I think we should make this a bit smaller. I don't think you can manage it, John. So like Dr. Berman, he had, of course, never performed a penile reattachment surgery before, but apparently the process is largely the same as reconnecting kind of a finger. It's just a couple arteries, a vein, and of course you have to reattach the urethra. But they had all the best people in that room to reattach that dick. And what amazes me is that they managed to get all of them in that room at such short notice. And it goes to show, if this was a woman that had a boob chopped off, they'd be like, oh yeah, we'll just have to stitch it up. But as soon as a man loses his dick, then every other male comes together to kind of band around him to kind of like,
do you think?
Let's get this done.
I don't know what the time is for him getting to the hospital and them starting surgery, but it doesn't sound like these are your typical doctors that would just be on call just in case something happened at 3 a.m. or whatever.
Clearly that's what happened, right? Because he was prepped for surgery just in a few hours.
Wow.
How did they orchestrate that?
I guess they just had to, one of those things, maybe you just have to act fast, and maybe you are on call and they're like, you got to come to the hospital, a man's lost his penis.
And also, like when they were in surgery, they had no idea whether or not the penis would even function properly. So all of this was just a massive gamble, but they had to give it a try because how else was he going to assault other women? I guess.
That's a horrible thing to say.
But it's true. Anyway, following the operation, the police charged both Lorena and John Wayne. John is charged with rape and Lorena is charged with malicious wounding, and they both have to stand trial. And that's what a lot of people don't realize about the story, is that there were actually two trials. They both had to stand trial. It wasn't just a trial for Lorena. In November 1993, John Wayne stood trial for rape, and Lorena's trial was scheduled for January of 1994, so a few months after. Now, because of how sensational the early reporting of the story was, the trial was just a complete circus. So, of course, you can imagine media outside every day. People were wearing T-shirts. You had the women cheering on Lorena. You had the men cheering on, obviously, John Bobbitt. It just became an absolute circus. And very quickly, like I said, they forgot that this was a domestic violence case, essentially.
Yeah. Like, we're obviously sort of joking about a man losing his penis just because it's so far-fetched and just horrible. But actually, at the moment, we don't really know what's going on in their private lives, what's true at this stage. And yeah, it's wrong to make assumptions.
That's it. And it will take forever for us to actually get Lorena's side of the story because they just weren't interested, really. It was also covered loads on like the morning shows. The news ran regular updates throughout the daily news cycle. There were talk shows like David Letterman and SNL did countless sketches. It was just part of pretty much the entire stand-up routine circuit for everyone. Robin Williams did a skit on it. Whoopi Goldberg did a skit on it. And what's crazy is that because of the way that the media spun the story, John was seen as the victim and all the jokes were made at Lorena's expense. She was just seen as a psychotic, jealous femme fatale rather than that victim of domestic violence, abuse and rape. And life was tough for her, man. She was constantly hounded by the media looking for just any kind of comment. They would stalk her, they would camp out her house, they would loiter outside for literally, Adam, weeks and weeks at a time. There was one group of journalists that was so intent on trying to get anything out of her, they stalked her for literally months.
Wow.
So everywhere she went, she was just hounded. She couldn't even leave her house. She wasn't even able to go to work. It got so bad that her only option, under the instruction of her lawyer, was to recruit a publicist to try and kind of quell what the public was saying about her, because it was just fueling more and more interest in her because of the lies that were circulating around her.
That seems so bizarre for a domestic case to get a publicist.
Exactly. But of course, the second she gets a publicist, this just provides the press with even more fodder to feed off, branding her as someone looking to capitalize on what she had done, or that she was trying to cover something up.
It's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly. And we see this time and time again, especially when it's a woman. Like what we saw with Linda Chamberlain, what we saw with Amanda Knox, what we're seeing now here with Lorena Bobbitt is that if they don't act properly, then they're guilty. If they do act properly, then they're putting on a show.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like,
they can't win.
They cannot win. So the fact that, of course, she got a publicist, she was just seen as fair game by the press, and anything released about her under her publicist was just seen by the media as spin to make her look good. So everything that was released about her was just scrutinized or deemed as a lie or deemed as an attempt to make herself look good, and therefore it was less credible. She did do one print interview, and that was with Vanity Fair. And this is where the world finally found out something about her. In it, she described her marriage and how it was just filled with the most horrific, unimaginable abuse. And the world only found out during this interview that she was actually from Ecuador, that she wasn't an American. She was raised in Venezuela. She came to the US on a student visa when she was just 18 years old after finishing high school. And her graduation present was actually a one-way ticket to the USA. And apparently, she learned how to speak English just by watching American soap operas.
I feel like I need to watch a soap opera to learn another language.
Is that really how you want to learn to speak another language? Because especially a soap opera, it's all really over the top.
It's exactly how I want to learn.
You're a bitch! No, you're a bitch!
I'm going to kill you as I'm paying for my groceries in an Italian store or something.
So, of course, once she learns a bit of English, she's able to then secure a job as a manicurist. And she says that she met John a couple months after arriving in the US at a Marine Corps training ball because he was training to become a Marine, right? And so one thing led to another and they started dating. And essentially, he was her first boyfriend ever. So it was like proper young love. But because she was a devout Catholic, they were never allowed to be alone, unchaperoned at any moment, which of course meant that they were not allowed to have sex.
Who was chaperoning them?
That would have probably been her family members that she was staying with.
Right, got you.
But eventually her visa was then due to expire. And because John didn't want her to leave and risk her not being allowed to come back, he asked her to marry her. And when he proposed, he did it with a shitty ring that he had found at the bottom of the training pool that he was training in.
So there's two ways you could look at this.
Okay.
One, he's a shitbag. And
Yeah.
he
Well, we
wasn't
know
making
that.
an effort, which sounds likely. Or two, he did something so spontaneous that, I don't know, you could be like swimming in a pool and you find that and you go like, oh, do you know what? Will you marry me? And you put it on. That's something that would be acceptable.
No, do you know what? The thing is, though, the ring was probably worthless because what a normal person would do is they would take the ring to a pawn shop, get the money for it, and then buy a brand new ring. But he clearly went to a pawn shop, realized it was worth nothing, kept it, and used it to propose to her. I reckon that's what happened.
Do you reckon?
Because you would sell it, right?
Yeah,
if it was
I guess
worth
so.
anything.
Yeah, otherwise, yeah, okay. I don't know why I was giving him the benefit of the doubt.
He's a rapist, Adam.
I will always try and see the best in people, but I don't feel like we're going to get that with him.
No, he is a shitbag. So according to the Vanity Fair article, they get married and not long after, everything just goes to shit. He becomes really violent and he starts raping her pretty much immediately. And when his time in the Marine Corps ended, they didn't offer him a job. So he just ended up living off of her and her manicurist job, essentially, at the salon, which just wasn't enough to support them. And it became really stressful for her. So she had to resort to stealing just to pay the bills. And eventually, Their house gets foreclosed, but he just doesn't seem to care. Like, they are penniless, they're almost going to be made homeless, and he just doesn't give a shit.
She chose the wrong man to get with, which maybe it's one of those things he perhaps didn't reveal his true colours until too far down the line.
She pretty much attests that her life with John Wayne was pretty much a living hell from the very start. She just had no idea how to leave. And if she did leave, like, where the hell was she going to go, right? What was she going to do? So it was just years and years of bullshit that she had to live through. And at the point that she cuts off his penis, she's only 23 years old. So she's really young as it is. And as we know, one night he came home, he raped her, she snapped. And this is her story as told in Vanity Fair. Up until this point, Adam, no one knew anything about her.
It seems bizarre. No one's tried to even understand.
The media just weren't printing anything about her life story. John Wayne doesn't do any press during this time, but he has some of the biggest celebrities backing him, in particular Howard Stern, who is a huge radio personality in the US, and he becomes John's biggest financial supporter. And his trial is pretty much paid for by Howard Stern or from the deals that John signs off the back of Stern's endorsements. And during the 1990s, Howard Stern constantly made numerous derogatory statements and comments about Lorena Bobbitt on his show, mocking her. He even questioned the allegations of abuse. He said that there's no way that John Wayne would have raped her because she's too ugly to be raped.
That's
awful.
This is a media personality.
And he's massive today. Howard Stern is huge even today.
That's disgusting.
It's awful. Over that year, a narrative emerged that Lorena is a lunatic and John is just a loving, unassuming man who wanted to take care of her. They say that because he went out for a few drinks with his buddies, she was just overcome with jealousy and couldn't handle it, so she snuck in while he was asleep and cut off his dick. So he was completely the victim and she was branded as a complete lunatic.
Yeah, at the moment, he hasn't really lost out on anything in the sense that he went through some trauma, but he's had his penis reattached and now he's got all this fame and backing from celebrities.
Yeah, and her life is essentially ruined.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that for a while, there was a real unconscious fear amongst men that women might start cutting off men's penises when they least expected it. But here's the thing. Men finally understood how women have felt walking home alone for centuries. Whoopi Goldberg captures this brilliantly in her stand-up skit, saying that Lorena Bobbitt made men realize what it feels like to be a woman all the time, constantly feeling that level of fear and kind of danger. So while these men are kind of worried that women are going to go around and chop off their knobs, well, that's how women feel about constantly fearing that they're going to get attacked just walking home at night. It's the same thing.
Did sales of like chastity belts go up?
Oh my God, you wait.
Really?
You wait.
Okay.
So Lorena did have some supporters, particularly from obviously feminist groups, who said that she only did what a lot of women have thought about doing for hundreds of years, and that she stood up for herself after being constantly raped and abused for like 6 years. Men didn't like it. They didn't like feeling that sense of vulnerability and fear, not knowing if they'd be attacked at any moment.
Poor men. This is such a rare instance.
Of course. It's
Do
like,
they really think now that all housewives are going to be like putting a knife in their purse now?
well, I mean, following these big kind of profile cases, there's often copycats.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
fair.
so I guess that's what men are in fear of. Yes, it's rare, but
It could still happen.
just don't be a shitbag.
That's the rule.
I think that's a rule that John Wayne should have adopted, because this wouldn't have happened then.
Yeah, if you're not a shitbag, then chances are you're probably not going to get attacked by someone.
So men didn't like it. They didn't like feeling that sense of vulnerability and fear, not knowing if they would just be attacked randomly. But as we said earlier on, like, if you're not going out raping women, then you wouldn't need to worry about getting your penis chopped off. But even those who believe that he raped her said that wasn't really justification for what she did. I don't know.
Well, as they say, two wrongs don't necessarily equal a right. So, but if she had just been attacked at that point, and maybe that was like the 100th time or whatever it was that she's faced this kind of trauma, then why? I don't know. She wasn't obviously in sound mind, potentially, and thinking rationally.
Sure.
We don't know how we would all behave in a certain situation under that kind of pressure. We all think we would go, oh, I wouldn't do that. I'd take the high ground. I'd just go to the police. But she could have done that before, but she didn't feel like she could for whatever reason. And it just got to a point where it built up too much. So no, she shouldn't have done that. But equally, I don't blame her for acting out in a way when she perhaps didn't know what she was doing.
I see it as a form of self-defense. Why would you not have the right to protect yourself in any way that you deem appropriate?
Yeah.
He raped her. So, like...
And if that happened that evening, if it was something like, I don't know, maybe he did it a week ago. I'm not saying that's better, but then that's premeditated, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, that's true.
To get one back. That's not necessarily right. But if it had just happened and she's in that kind of state, then I feel like there is some sympathy there.
Yeah, don't go around raping women and you won't have anything to worry about. So his trial for rape takes place in November 1993 over the course of 2 days. Now, due to Virginia's law on marital rape, he can't actually be tried for rape because they are essentially married. So his charges are downgraded to marital sexual assault. But even though those charges are downgraded to marital sexual assault, they still find him not guilty.
I wonder what his team must have done to get him off the hook, because you would think that there must have been enough evidence for the jury to sympathise, or the media storm just presented him in the positive light that maybe that swayed it.
Possibly, like the media can have such a major impact on the outcome of a trial. And I wonder if that was what was happening here. So it's just disgusting. And all his legal fees are paid for by all of his adoring fans, including, of course, as I said, Howard Stern. What is worse is that the state prosecutor on his trial and the judge who tried the case are going to be the same people who will be trying her for cutting off his penis.
That doesn't feel like fair whatsoever.
No. So they've just found him not guilty, and now they're going to go and trial her for cutting off his penis.
Like, you're going to go into that thinking, well, she's guilty. I don't know why we're bothering with this. That's
crazy.
Usually, what is it like? If you're a policeman, you can't work on that case, isn't it? That's like a general rule.
Yeah.
So anything, if you're too close to something, you shouldn't be involved.
Especially if you've presided over the other case and you've heard all the evidence and stuff, and they get found not guilty, and knowing that the next trial completely conflicts with
the next one.
This one, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it's not a spoiler to say it doesn't go her way.
Wow. Lorena's trial is set for after Christmas in January 1994. Now, unlike John's legal fees, Lorena has to front her own costs, which she pays for from the help of a friend, the salon owner, and obviously she gets a little bit of money from Vanity Fair. At one point, Playboy, however, they did offer her $1 million to pose, but of course, she refuses because, of course, good Catholic girl.
Good for her.
Yeah. And the thing is that once he was found not guilty of raping her, it was going to make her trial very difficult because her case was based on the claim that she acted in self-defense after he raped her. And if it's the same judge and the prosecutor who just finished a trial where he was found not guilty, how is she going to explain what she did and why she did it? So her trial is televised because, of course, it's one of the biggest stories in the world at the time. And just to illustrate how big this trial was, at the same time, there was a major arms deal being signed between the Clinton administration and another country. And the news would take breaks to cover, obviously, the other story. But because the only thing anyone cared about was, of course, the penis trial, CNN just kept getting loads and loads of complaints. So much so that they had to just go back to the trial before the arms deal was even complete.
Really?
Like, this is some serious big political news. And the only thing anyone cares about is dick news.
Well, do you know what? This always happens, isn't it? Like, there's something that comes up in the story or in the press that's just way more entertaining than actual politics or whatever it is.
I guess so. So on the stand, Lorena talks extensively about her abuse. And when you watch clips of her talking, which of course we'll include in the show notes and also on our Facebook page, there's just no doubt that she's telling the truth. And she's visibly traumatized by everything that he had done to her. So because of the fact that John Wayne was found not guilty, there is a worry that the jury just are not going to believe her. So the defense strategy has to pivot and they try to plead temporary insanity. And remarkably, Adam, this works because temporary insanity hardly ever works. The stats are like less than 1% of people who claim temporary insanity in crimes end up getting acquitted. So the fact that the jury believed her, I think, is pretty vindicating.
So it seems like a risky strategy to go down this route of temporary insanity, knowing that it doesn't normally work. But they think this is because she's pleading her case and it is believable. They think maybe this might just swing it because they can't change the outcome of the previous trial. So from this, they're saying there's justification why she did what she did, and this is it.
And it works. She's one of the very few people that get found not guilty because of it. But because, of course, she has pleaded temporary insanity, she has to spend 45 days in a mental institution just for evaluation. But they do release her early, like declaring like nothing's wrong with her. Like, we've checked her out, she's fine, she's not a threat to herself or anyone else.
She ain't going to cut off any more penises.
Yes, it was definitely just temporary. So after she is released, she retreats into privacy. She doesn't do any interviews or deals. She doesn't accept any money. She just goes back to being a manicurist and she tries to rebuild her life. John Wayne, on the other hand, that's a whole different story. He dives headfirst into trying to be famous. It's like every reality TV star who gets kicks off their show. Like, they try to do just everything that they possibly can to try and keep the fame ball rolling.
He's milking his 15 minutes.
Exactly. That's exactly what he's doing. So the first thing that he does is he goes on a 40-city tour, going on every TV and radio show, doing as many interviews as he possibly can. He then starts a band called Severed Parts.
Oh, God.
Selling whatever merchandise he possibly can, including a patented penis protector.
He came up with this, or
I still can't work out exactly what this is,
and how it's going to protect
and how it's going to work. But the packaging, Adam, is just brilliant. I did realize eventually, after scrutinizing the packaging, that it's a joke product.
Oh, okay. This is flimsy. This is going to do nothing.
So let me show you a picture of it.
The Bobbitt penis protector. Wow, it is named after him. For a safe night's sleep. That's horrendous.
The tagline is, as you said, for a safe night's sleep. It's, of course, signed and endorsed by John Wayne Bobbitt. Its highlights state that the device conforms to the penal code in all states.
Okay.
One size fits all, apparently, and is brought to you by Climax Corporations for your piece of meat.
What actually is it? What's actually made of?
I don't know. That's the thing, Adam. It just looks like a surgical rubber glove. I don't get it. It's almost like a scrunched up rubber tube. It's not anything.
Is it like you get those like willy warmers, which are always too small and you're supposed to use them, but they're joke presents?
Yeah.
So
I think so.
Is this just the equivalent of that, I guess?
I think so. I don't think it's anything. I think it's just like a memorabilia product that doesn't do anything. It's just a surgical glove. On the box, there is just a sketch of this man just casually laying in bed nonchalantly with a woman sneaking into the bed with a big giant sword. Like, what's she going to do with that?
I don't think that's going to protect him from a sword.
No, yeah.
You need some chainmail.
So here are the reasons why you need this. Because revenge can be painful. Because one circumcision is enough.
Right.
Because the bigger you are, the more you have to lose.
Jeez, this feels like this belongs in mankind or menkind.
Exactly. This is when I realised that actually, this is a joke.
Yeah.
There's also a section titled, "Who Needs the Bobbitt Penis Protector?"
I mean, do you get this on Father's Day? I don't know when you would buy this.
Well, I'm going to tell you. If you tick any of these boxes, then you need the penis protector. So anyone who is a bad liar, anyone who is a bad lover, anyone who has something to hide, anyone who has a lover who has a bad sense of humor. Like, you raped her, you piece of shit.
That's horrendous.
It's awful.
And also, if you were gifted this, you'd be like, should I be wearing this?
Yeah, should I? And then who's gifting it to you?
Like your girlfriend's gifting this. I think you need this, just in case. Do you know what? Anyone who's got any common sense, just throw this thing away.
Anyway, so he also starts selling autographed butcher knives. He sells T-shirts with slogans on it, like John Bobbitt, a cut above the rest. He's just capitalizing on everything, and it's really just quite grotesque.
Yeah. Please tell me he fades into obscurity or he does get his comeuppance.
Well, His old mate Howard Stern steps in to help him out at a New Year's Eve telethon to try and raise money. On the show, they have this giant penis-o-meter that just slowly rises as the donations flood in, and they raise over $200,000. So he gets quite a bit of money from all of this, which obviously helps pay his legal fees, helps sets him up after the court case and things like that. But then the thing is, though, the money starts to run out, and John Wayne Bobbitt stars in 2 porn films.
He's now a porn star.
He is a porn star. The first one is called John Wayne Bobbitt Uncut,
Okay.
which is very much the opposite.
Okay.
It's absolutely cut. And the other one is Frankenpenis.
Frankenpenis. Oh my God.
I wish I could say that the cover of Frankenpenis was as imaginative as it sounds, but sadly it's just quite lame. It's just him holding another woman dressed in a white bikini.
I want him to have a bolt through it.
That's what I thought. That's the first thing I thought, is will it be some kind of weird cosplay thing? But no, it's
And
just
there's like lightning in the background. And it makes that weird kind of grumbly sound. Isn't that what Frankenstein does? Please tell me you haven't seen this thing.
I've seen both. I've seen the severed dick and I've seen the dick in the pornos. And I can tell you they do a really good job at putting it back together.
Oh, God.
Do you want to see it?
I don't think I want to see it. Okay, maybe just a little bit.
Okay, so this is the penis that they found on the side of the road. This is currently on a surgical kind of tray in the hospital.
Kidney dish type thing.
This is it.
What is it? Oh, I don't know what that is. Oh God. That's gross. So it wasn't like the whole thing then?
Yeah, exactly. I thought it would be much bigger. It's rank, isn't it? And it looks like a dick, but it's very small. It's tiny.
I mean, it's been cut up and it's shriveled up a bit, but either way, I don't think it doesn't look like that's the full amount. And
No.
Even still, that's gross.
And here is a picture of it being sewn on.
Oh God, no, I don't want to see that either.
That's gross, isn't it? And then that is his dick in the porno.
Well, it looks back to normal.
Yeah, they've done a really bloody good job.
But hang on, I feel a little bit strange. We're talking about a rapist here.
That is true.
I want him to, please tell me so he doesn't get his comeuppance.
No, he does. So,
he does? Good.
Yes, you're going to find out in just a second. But
Okay.
There was a guy who worked at a brothel, and he said that there were a bunch of girls that saw his dick up close. And they said that it looked like a dented Red Bull can.
That's okay. All right, fine, yeah.
And apparently, since obviously all this kicked off, he's had cosmetic surgery to make his dick bigger. And I think this is pretty much more because he was now a porn star. Not a porn star that earned the role due to his size of the penis, but more for how freaky it looked. And of course, compared to the other actors, he just didn't match up in terms of size. So of course, he felt the pressure to get a penis enlargement. But apparently in 2016, he had surgery to reverse it because he didn't like how it felt. But how do you reverse a penis enlargement?
It depends on how it's enlarged, isn't it?
So what they did, this is going to be gross for some of our freaks out there. So you have a good 2 or 3 inches of penis inside your body. So they cut the ligament to that, and that lets the penis or the shaft come down a bit more, giving you a couple more inches. But the problem with that is that your penis no longer stands up straight, erect. It's still erect, but it kind of points down. So how do you have that reversed?
Do you then cut the bit back and then stitch that together so it's then tight?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I guess you just stitch it back together.
I don't know. I don't think you should just mess around with these things.
No, you shouldn't. Don't mess around with penises.
Like he's already had one knife to it.
And he went under, he had elective surgery to go under it again. What I really love about the story is that in the documentary, which actually is directed by Jordan Peele. Do you know the guy who did Get Out, the film Get Out?
It's directed by him. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the documentary is called Lorena, and they do a really great job of telling the story. But in the documentary, what I really loved is that they interview one of the dispatchers who received one of the original calls that, of course, there was a woman that had chopped off her husband's dick and that they were looking for it. And they said that because they knew that they couldn't really say anything over the radio because the media were listening in on all the radio calls looking for stories. So they would just be really careful to not say things like severed penis. And they would like swap things out for, we need to get it to the hospital quickly to preserve the man's dignity and things like that.
I see.
So coded language rather than saying the word dick. And that's the thing, as we said earlier on, there was a time in the media where you couldn't really say words like vagina or penis. But after this story broke, they realized that they need to start changing the rules so that they could effectively report on stories like this. So most days, the word penis was printed in the tabloids.
I guess people were just like, what's penis every day?
Yeah.
People didn't, I don't know, they got used to it.
They just got desensitized. It just became the norm, I guess.
What were they using before? Winkies?
I don't know, like willies, knobs, I don't know.
His
I can't imagine using...
genitalia? Even then, that sounds...
probably genitalia. Just a general word for both.
His privates?
I just can't imagine that. I'm not even sure if that's even true. Kids must have found it amusing, though.
Yeah.
They said penis. Finally, all of John Wayne Bobbitt's money runs out and he just ends up becoming a bouncer at a brothel. Eventually, he gets fired for being drunk and being really rough with the girls. And since then, he has been married several times. And within each one of those relationships, he has at some stage been convicted of domestic battery, stalking or harassing or even rape. One of his wives said that he handcuffed her to the bed and he raped her for 4 days, which he ends up spending time in jail for.
Good. Please tell me he's still in jail, because he feels like he should be locked up. He's not safe around people.
He only spends a year in jail. So he now lives on disability after breaking his neck in a car accident in 2014. But get this, to pass the time, he actually became a fen head and he's actually out searching for Forrest Fenn's buried treasure somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, which is obviously what we covered in episode 15 back in July of 2023.
That's a weird tie-in. You almost think like you're trying to plug a previous episode there.
It's true, though. He actually did it.
We didn't even have to force that one in this week.
He did say in an interview that when he was asked about obviously how he was progressing with his search, that he believed wholeheartedly that he knew where the treasure was and that he believed that when he finds it, he'll be invited to the White House to meet President Trump, who will then express his thanks and support to him. But like, it's just such a loser. Still really fame hungry.
Yeah, I really don't like this guy.
No. As for Lorena, she went back to college. She met a new guy. They've been married for almost 20 years now. And together they have a young daughter. And what's really lovely is that she spends most of her time now working for a domestic violence non-profit that she'd actually set up. It's called the Lorena Gallo Foundation, which, as you can probably guess, helps women escaping domestic violence relationships. What is gross, though, is that even after all these years, John Wayne Bobbitt still tries to contact her. He sends her Valentine's Day cards every year, and he keeps reminding her that if she apologizes, he will take her back. I'm like, bitch, she's not interested.
Yeah, this...
He's rank.
Like, good for her for just, like, getting on with her life and, you know, doing what she's done. You can like clearly see who's telling the truth in all this.
That's it, yeah. And Adam, that is the story of Lorena Bobbitt and John Wayne Bobbitt's severed penis.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Frankenpenis.
Frankenpenis.
I don't know. I feel, if anything, I feel a little nauseous after everything we've talked about.
Especially seeing that pork lard on.
Yeah.
I can't believe how small it was. Do you know, I thought like it would have been cut more at the base rather than, that's clearly cut through the middle, right?
I think so, yeah.
And it was small, I guess, because all the blood's been lost out of it.
I mean, I don't know if we should, like, we shouldn't assume, I don't know. Yeah, it's not in its best state. But either way, this guy is a dick. He's had all this fame and notoriety when he's a rapist.
Yeah.
He's attacked multiple women
and
since
she
then.
became the villain as well. That's just tragic.
So it's actually pretty sick. And I think, okay, I feel better about laughing at his incident.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. And we should laugh because he's a monster. And it's just such a shame that he was never fully held accountable for what he did to her. And even when he was found guilty of rape, he only served 1 year in jail. What a piece of shit.
Yeah. That was I want to say a good story. That is a good story. It's an odd story in terms of, I just didn't know where it was heading. It definitely intrigued me and it was fascinating.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, well done.
Shall we run the outro?
Let's do it.
And so that's it for another episode of the Compendium podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow us on your favorite podcasting app. It really helps us when you do. Next week's episode is now available 7 days early on our free access Patreon. For more content, subscribe to our Certified Freaks tier for access to our entire backlog, exclusive posts and sneak peeks. We'd love you to come and join and have a chat. We release episodes every Tuesday, and until then, remember, sometimes cutting ties just isn't enough. See you next time.
See ya.